Welcome into the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Believe Network. We are presented by Betonline.ag. Betonline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From preseason NFL to college kicking off, Betonline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds. So if you know your stuff, get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor Pool for the upcoming season. So head over to betonline.com or betonline.ag and use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, we welcome our special guest. He once kicked the ball 100,000 miles, according to Larry Munson, to beat Clemson. He is a Super Bowl champion, 13-year NFL vet, a member of the College Football Hall of Fame, and this weekend he will represent Georgia as an honorary captain in the Aflac Kickoff Game that features the top-ranked Bulldogs and the 14th-ranked Clemson Tigers. It's Mr. Kevin Butler. Kevin, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining.
I'm doing great. Thank you. I appreciate the time to come on and talk about it.
Absolutely, man. So talk me through when you got the phone call to be an honorary captain in this game. Like, how did that happen? How do you get nominated for this type of thing? And, like, what was going through your mind, and how stoked are you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm very honored, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the college football season. I got a call from Derek Martin with the Chick-fil-A Bowl and the kickoff game, the Aflac Kickoff Game, and he told me about the honor that I was going to receive and the opportunity I had, and I jumped in full force. Already know what I'm going to call, if I'm going to call it. I don't know if I'll call the flip, but to be out there and represent the University of Georgia is a great honor. It's something that you really don't think about. When you think about the Clemson game that I kicked the field goal in some 40 years ago, that's kind of what I think about. First of all, I go, wow, 40 years ago, and all of a sudden, you have an opportunity to relive it a little bit through the rivalry that we have with Clemson. Though it's not every year, I think the Clemson-Georgia rivalry has enough history to showcase certain things that happened over the years between these two great universities on the football field. Back in the 80s, it was the matchup of the years. The 80 championship by Georgia, 81 by Clemson. We lose it in 82 to Penn State. A lot of good football was played then. A lot of good players came from both schools, and a lot of us played together on NFL teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Clemson rivalry, I guess when they went to the ACC and the conference stuff that started happening, I guess that rivalry had kind of just fallen off a little bit. Is it starting to? Are you noticing that it's starting to kind of rekindle with the newer generation?
I'm not sure if it's rekindling or ever will get as bright a flame as it had back in the 80s, because, again, recruiting, the proximity of the two universities, we compete over players from this area. All that's changed so much. Recruiting's on a national scale now. Everybody recruits everybody if you're ranked a 4 or 5 star. Back in the 80s, you had 2 or 3 schools that earmarked you and you earmarked them, and most of them were close by. Right. We really didn't have a lot of guys that crossed the whole nation to go play on the West Coast. Some did. Some were successful. But for the most part, I think it worked to your advantage to stay around the region which you grew up playing. Nowadays, I think any chance we get to compete with Clemson, it's good for both universities. The ACC and the SEC schedules are really not allowing this much. You'll see it more in the kickoff games like Aflac is sponsoring this weekend.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that game this weekend. I mean, we talked about, on paper, and I think the perception is like Georgia's going to steamroll. Clemson's not going to provide much resistance. That's kind of like the outside chatter that you hear. But like in looking at Clemson, they're pretty good, even though, and a lot of that's because Dabo doesn't use the transfer portal and all that hoopla that surrounds him. But like, what do you think about this game? Why is Clemson going to provide a formidable opponent? What about Georgia? How's this game going to shake out?
Well, you just got to look back this past weekend. FSU's not number 10 in the nation. Georgia Tech is a heck of a lot better of a football team than people anticipated. Don't ever underestimate your opponent in college football, especially Clemson. They have been at the top of the game for a long time. Dabo knows what he's doing. I personally know Dabo. I would play for Dabo. He's a great coach. He's going to have his team ready. They have depth. They're a very good college football team. And if anybody thinks that it's not going to be a game, they've probably been spending a lot of time at the pool this summer and not really keeping up on football because, I think it's going to be a challenge for Georgia to get out there and to create some playmakers. It's going to be a challenge from Clemson's defense to make things happen a little bit quicker for Carson Beck. When you take away Ladd McConkey, you take away Brock Bowers, and you put some new running backs back there, all of a sudden, Carson needs to make his players look good this year. He needs to help develop those players. Our receivers for the past 2 years have certainly helped our quarterbacks develop. So kind of it's a role reversal this year. Carson's going to have to be that guy that's going to have to challenge some of these receivers to get some separation, to become those go-to guys, because it's going to take more than one guy to replace Brock Bowers. You're going to have to get 2 to 3 guys in there contributing at a consistent basis. And certainly on the outside, we're going to have to see some receivers either from within or from the transfer portal become that go-to receiver by 2 things: running good routes and creating separation.
Absolutely, perfectly said. And I think a lot of help this year for the first time in a while, we can say that we're getting really big contributions from transfer portal guys. Trevor Etienne, if for whatever reason he's playing or, I know he's dealt with some legal stuff in the spring, but he's going to be a big factor this season, hopefully in this game. You have Colby Young from Miami that's going to contribute at wide receiver, London Humphreys, Michael Jackson. And I think Dom Lovett is probably going to be the best incumbent receiver that we have on the roster. I really like the routes that he runs, the impact that he can make on short throws and long throws. Yeah,
and it all looks good on paper. It all, we've heard of it, heard some of them are good in practice. Some will never make it on the field, as we know. And it kind of goes right back to what I think Kirby has probably said to his team, and he rightfully should say it to them, that, guys, you guys have not accomplished a damn thing.
Right.
Everybody's talking, you're number one. You got to prove it each and every day. And It's going to be hard to prove it against Clemson this weekend. Clemson has every right to claim the number one spot, as you do. Nobody's done a thing. And though you practice hard, though you've been up against each other for a while, we need to go out there. If we're a number one team, we need to be a good timing team. Things needs to flow. People need to understand the positions, where to be. Those are the things you look for in a first game that really distinguish a very good team from a team that's trying to become good. Are you getting guys on and off the field in time? Are positions, are the players in position out there? And then to tell all be all, who's going to make plays? And you got to make plays. Georgia's kicking game is better than Clemson. Clemson's going back and forth with some place kicking right now. The special teams, having that, each of these 2 teams value the special teams. Those are the plays that kind of make a big, big difference early in the season, whether it's a mistake or whether it's completing that mission on special teams. So if you sit down, it's going to be a 12 o'clock game that starts. You should be in your
seats. Get your day started. Yes.
Get in your seats, because it's going to be a ball game. I see it being a very exciting ball game. I think it's going to be very fought very hard.
Do you have a prediction?
Well, I do. I'm looking at about Georgia 27, Clemson 19.
That, you know what, I always go like the 28-17, 28-20 range. So that's pretty spot on. I like that prediction. Well, now we got the game. It's predicted. I think it's going to be a good game. I think people often overblow the fact that it's going to be a blowout. I don't think so at all. This is always a war. This game's always a war. But I want to talk about you a little bit, Kevin. All right, I want to talk about you and your history a little bit. All right, I want to dig into the 100,000-mile kick. All right, so you go, you line up. You knock it through the uprights, which it looked like you did it with ease. The crowd goes wild. I know things are bonkers, and as Larry Munson once said, worse than bonkers.
Yeah.
Right. When was the first time you heard his call? Like when you listened back to it, what was your reaction when you heard the call based on what your memories were of the actual kick?
Well, that's a good question. I grew up only listening to Larry Munson. I never went to a Georgia game until I was well in high school and being recruited by them because I played Pop Warner football. So I just, his voice was special. Right. He painted a great picture. But I can't remember the first time I heard it. I'm sure it was probably sometime that week. Highlights, replays, early 80s really didn't happen that much. But over the years, yeah. So, I've heard it so many times since then. And, so when I hear Larry, I always tell people, I think Larry made it bigger than it was. And people go, are you kidding me? It was a 60-yarder and, last play of the game. And back then, yeah, that was a big play. These kids are kicking 60-yarders like it's nothing now. But the key to that one is, you got to make it at the end. The 4 years that we played each other, kicking was a great deal of it. Every time we would, my freshman year, we got beat 13-3. We had 9 turnovers. My sophomore year, we win 13-7, 2 field goals. My junior year, we tie 16 all with a 66 and a 67-yard field goal by each team at the end of the game. No good. And then my senior year, it comes down to, Donald and myself kind of dueling kickers. And I got the last shot with the 60-yarder. And I've met all 200,000 people that were at the game that day over my last 40 years. It seems like everybody I talk to, the coolest thing about it to me now is not everybody was at the game, but people remember where they were when it happened. And there's very few plays in all of sports that you remember where you were at. And I think Larry made that part of it greater than just my kick, which I'll, forever be thankful for.
Absolutely. And that's one of the iconic radio calls in sports history. Larry Munson, one of the best to ever do it. Just that call and the thousands of other calls that he had throughout his years. And I remember listening to him. I remember him being just a pivotal part of like just radio broadcasting. And like when I first learned of, the Homer, hometown radio, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Yeah. I was like, this guy is just like, this guy is not impartial. This guy is full on Georgia. I love it, and I love those type of announcers, and that's awesome to me.
Yeah, it's we miss those kind of guys. I think just with the overload of information now, it's really hard to find that pure homer. That Wayne Larrivee was somebody that called it for the Bears for many years when I was there, and he did a great job. He did such a good job. Guess who came and hired him? The Green Bay Packers. That's just something doesn't seem right about that. And, Larry was through and through a Bulldog and always was. And, I get the extra special bonus of having a radio partner that is second only to Larry Munson and Jeff Danzler. And, Jeff is about as Bulldog as they get from the time his mom birthed him. I say, you were a Bulldog. And that's just special, to have somebody represent the school like Larry did, and then to have a call that will always be related to that kick. Heck, that's euphoria, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I was immortalized in radio lore. So let's talk about the Bears. Let's talk about your time in Chicago, because there's a lot of interesting things there. Because Soldier Field in the 80s and 90s I felt like was a really tough place to kick. I mean, you had the Sean Landetta play where he whiffed the punt. It's so windy, so cold. The field is hard. What's it like kicking at Soldier Field?
Well, it wasn't easy. It was nothing like, Athens, Georgia. I can tell you that much.
Then you got Ditka in your face, like yelling at you too.
Had Ditka in your face. You had a lot of people that made sure you were accountable for your actions. And I think that was probably the best part of it. And that's what kind of settled easily with me, because I was the toughest person on myself at the University of Georgia with my performance and how I prepared. And that was well respected at Georgia, and it was well respected within the Bears, and those players respected what I did. They knew I wasn't going to be perfect. They knew the conditions were tough some days, but they held you accountable for preparing and being ready. Best way I did that is I would go down and practice at Soldier Field on a daily basis. And it just, it's like if you played the old course in Scotland every day and then you had somebody come over, they would think it's the most treacherous thing you've ever done in your life. But yet, if you do it every day, you become numb to it, and you know that what the conditions are going to be, and you know your limitations, so you can better define who you're going to be as a kicker.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. And I encouraged that because it was a very low-cut stadium. The only thing that blocked the wind off the lake was Indiana, which was about 200 miles away. So, you just had to try to be the best and be prepared for whatever it dealt you. Our field conditions were horrible. We would have sand dumped on the field prior to a game. We would have new turf down. I wore everything from 1.5 inches to 1 inch steel tipped cleats on my left foot just to try to whatever I could do to make sure I was either breaking the ice on the field or stepping in turf that was so fresh that you needed cleats in the ground to hold your balance.
Absolutely. So Super Bowl champion, what a Super Bowl what a Super Bowl week like in 1985 versus, I know now it's like a huge deal, like a huge party.
Yeah. We were on our own. We had a lot of media the first couple of days, and, we had a lot of personalities on that team. So the media was thick. That team was as popular as any team ever, probably leading up to that point in the NFL. From the Fridge to Walter Payton to Jim McMahon to Mike Ditka to Dan Hampton to Richard Dent. I mean, you could go down the line. Everybody had the radio shows. Everybody had deals, commercials. So it was big. We were on our own though, and we just were very confident. We knew that if we did not turn the ball over, we would win the game. I really felt that we all were very confident in that. We go out there, and I think first play of the game, we turned the ball over. Walter did. And we went, let's get it together. And they went up 3-0. Then all of a sudden we went 3-3, 6-3, 13-3, 20-3, 23-3. I mean, it was just it was a boat race at that point. They couldn't do anything against our defense, just like anybody else. It was an unbelievable team that I got to play with that were great friends. Some were heroes, and some still are heroes that are fighting battles much greater than football. With a good friend of mine, Steve McMichael, who just got inducted in the Hall of Fame off of that defense.
I saw that.
First active inductee with ALS, and Steve was a dear friend. He was my next door neighbor, and he was the backup kicker on that 85 team, believe it or not, from Texas. he would put the toe shoe on if had to, and he would go out and kick. So it was a lot of fun. But the one thing about championship teams is you always keep those friendships, and that was something I got to do at Georgia and with Chicago.
Did you do the Super Bowl shuffle?
I did not. I knew better. I got asked, but I knew that they did not draft me to sing and dance. So kicking was hard enough. And, all those guys, though I don't really regret it, but they all received the gold 45 framed album, as Elvis has hanging in his house. Mm-hmm. They had a gold record. It was went to number 2 on the video on a national level that year. Oh, wow. It was quite entertaining, and it was just another peg in that, in that team. They shot that the morning after we lost our only game that year, and that was against Miami in Miami. So Ditka had some choice words for them, and that's when I kind of sat over there and smiled and said, he's not speaking to me.
There you go. So you got to avoid the wrath of Ditka at least once in that scenario.
Well, for singing and dancing, I got my wrath for kicking. I'm not worried about that.
Absolutely. So when you retired, you're into radio. You got a little bit into coaching. You got your PhD also.
No, I just got just my grad. Not a graduate. Just I came back as an undergrad to obtain my diploma in Terry College of Business.
And then you worked with the team, right, during that time?
Yeah, I worked with them for 3 years on Kirby's staff, and it was fun. It was interesting. I enjoyed it, and I learned right then that it wasn't for me.
Right.
It's just a huge commitment, and these coaches are relentless. They really are, and we're very lucky to have Kirby and all those coaches on staff.
Absolutely. And it's an amazing job that y'all did through those years. And since he's been here, I mean, just kind of switching the culture around and things had kind of gotten stale. And I love Coach Rick. I worked for Coach Rick when I was a student as in recruiting. So I knew how it was in Rick's early years. And things that just it seemed like he was burnt out, and then Kirby seemed to come back in and kind of rejolt the program. So it's been amazing what he's done since he's gotten here.
Yeah, it really has been. I mean, Kirby, we had an eye on him, one of the up and coming coaches, our alum. What would be a better way to follow up with Coach Rick than to have another future Hall of Fame coach at Georgia? You talk about Coach Dooley, and then you talk about Coach Donnan and Coach Mark Rick, all three in the College Football Hall of Fame, and Kirby's certainly on that road right now. So Georgia's been very blessed to have great coaches. Kirby was going to make a jump at some point, and that was when all of a sudden I think Georgia felt like the timing was right. And I think, as you said, I think it was a good timing for Coach Rick to step back and take a fresh start. We all need to do that. We all do that at some point in your career, whether you're a coach or a player. And, I think the best part about it is I know Coach Rick and his wife and family, they're back in Athens, and they enjoy being there, and we enjoy still having a relationship with them.
Absolutely. And he, like I said, 15 years is a really phenomenal run for any coach in college football, especially with as fast as they're firing people. So, it's a great deal. And he did a great deal for this program. And that should never be understated, in my opinion.
Exactly.
So so game days on the Georgia Bulldogs radio network, what's new this season? What can we get excited for? What's going on?
Well, I just think it's going to be another great year. Jeff and myself will do all the pregame and postgame. And tomorrow, Thursday night, myself and Drew are following up Coach Smart's interview that he does pregame. So we'll do the post game. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about, going to some new places this year. We don't travel with the team, so we'll be at the Hilltop Grill on Sunday mornings, home and away games. So we look forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and just going to be it's going to be some different challenges. And I think with our depth and what we've proven in the past years, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely, this season is going to be an amazing season, amazing run, great SEC schedule. Our 3 toughest games on the road. But Kevin, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me. Have fun this weekend as honorary captain of the Aflac Kickoff Classic Kickoff Game, and enjoy yourself. And thank you for coming on.
You got it, man. I appreciate it. And go Dogs.
Go Dogs.